Hey everybody. Oh, it's good to be back here. So, just finished doing a sort of a theme on obsessed artists that had a huge impact on me. But this was actually the first video I was going to do because this is a shorter video, but these are the first pieces of music artists that woke me up in a big way to music that was out there. So it was the waking up period for me to begin exploring playing instruments and music in general. So I'm going to do a couple pieces that, had a instantaneous change in my life path. So I'm going to, with that said, I'm going to set the scene. So it was around 1986. So junior high school, didn't really know what was going on in music. I was listening to music at the time. You had Club Nouveau doing a version of Lean On Me. You had the Jets. You had the Beastie Boys. You had Europe. Final Countdown. You had Lou Gramm, Midnight Blue. These are some of the hits. Heart, Alone, Grateful Dead, Touch of Grey. Those were some of the hits in 1986, summer of 1986. So I went away to hang out with a family member in down south around 1986, and somebody had a shoebox of cassette tapes, of sort of blank tapes, mixtapes, and I had my Walkman. And one day I was listening to a lot of popular music. We all had Columbia House had versions, various hits at the time from Phil Collins and the Jets and even Madonna. I think I was listening to. Or whatever radio station you were listening to, you're listening to the top 10 at 10. And that's how most people got their music. If they didn't have the inside track, or they didn't have siblings who sort of passed down music, or didn't have people telling you what was more hip to listen to. So, anyway, I basically, I encountered this accidentally. Basically picked out a cassette tape, threw it in my Walkman, and popped it in on side one. And after the first song, I would say the second song came on, and this was it. This was one of the ones that woke me up. Here we go. Yeah, I still got chills when those tapping arpeggios were sort of reaching that climax. I started getting chills down both my arms. And I'm not sure if Eddie particularly was a fan of that sort of extra. They had this sort of stereo, this sort of etherealness, this sort of heavens opening feeling you get from that production, from that engineering. I'm not sure if he was a fan of it from the beginning. Maybe he is now or not, or was. But yeah, it's obviously not it's not the rawest super live sound. It's a very, it goes into, I was thinking of the whole thing of, like I said, the Heavens Open and Gabriel's horn. I guess in the late 70s version, it would hear Eddie's guitar sort of entrancing, playing the opening music, walk-on music to the Afterworld. But yeah, obviously Running with the Devil was the first song, and then it went into this. But when I popped in the tape and then heard this, and then especially even it really got me going into that, I was like, what the heck is this stuff, man? This is like off the charts. This is just like, I was listening to. This is so, immediately, I'll go into what was on side 2. So it was a 2-part epiphany, sort of brain change, direction change in my life. So I was 15 years old, around there, I think 15, and that was the summer of '86. Went home. So obviously Van Halen had been around for a good 8 years. They were after 1984. So actually, when I was in junior high, they were touring on 5150, and the Live Without a Net was actually near my hometown in New Haven, Connecticut, where I was going to junior high school at the time. So I remember they were posting little posters around the junior high saying Live Without a Net, Van Halen's coming to town, and I had no idea what it was. So I really didn't know until maybe the next year what Van Halen was going on about. So, but it did its job with me, like thousands of others. So yeah, so much so by when I started playing guitar that fall, started taking lessons. Initially had a kind of cheap, Fender copy guitar, but when I bought my first guitar, my first electric, with my own money, or I was a year later, I bought the Kramer Sustainer for 1988 for $800, I think it was. It was a white one. Had all the bells and whistles, all the, the Sustainer. Anything a boy could want that didn't necessarily know how to play all the chords, didn't know the scales, but had a whammy bar and an endless supply of sound to manipulate that. But the guitar itself wasn't super great. I tried to sell it in 1990, probably sold it for like $350. Van Halen was also very hard to learn. Like at that time, they had like little handwritten copies you could send away for. Some guy would write out a handwritten version of like Jamie's Crying. But it was very hard to, especially for pre-tablature and stuff like that. It wasn't really sure. Like it's hard to define what was the rhythm, where the measure ended, where it started, what was the rhythm of the notes and all that stuff. So with Eddie, it was just like reading hieroglyphics, trying to figure out how does this note correspond to that sound. So I didn't have a lot of luck with playing Van Halen at the time, or learning it, other than playing the rhythm of like You Really Got Me. Could play the rhythm parts, or like Hot for Teacher, kind of learned that, similar to like LaGrange. But anyway, review wise, yeah. However, Ted Templeman, producer of the first Montrose album and instigator of the loud, energy-laden sound that Livewire crackled in its every groove, stood at the boards quietly and without fuss, making sure that recording sound crashed out of our speakers like a brick through a plate glass window. And I said the performance had a lot of plate reverb, in which Eddie wasn't a fan of, and it was very difficult to sound accurate. So yeah, this song, first introduction to Van Halen, was off Van Halen 1, and immediately, yeah, I said, got a guitar. I said, I don't know what he's doing, but I want to explore that. I want to investigate. So yeah, this is what this episode is about, my waking up. Okay, there's the pre-Van Halen, there's the listening to the radio years, and then there was the Van Halen years, like, oh, there's all this stuff out there. So it was a big sea change. Look forward to hearing anything anybody has on where you are, where you came from, music that inspired you. Until then, look forward to the next segment. I think we're going to look into look into some Dylan, but I think we're gonna join a lot of cover music and see some of the great Dylan covers that have been done over the years. There's been hundreds, obviously, but there's some stuff that's I think stands on its own as really transporting, and transcendent Dylan. So look forward to that and a whole bunch of other themed shows. We're going to jump into a lot of different directions. So I hope to see you there. Bye-bye.